The Tempucenic era sees continued diversification of avian carnivores. Falconaries, a clade of mostly flying predatory birds falling under the order Falconara, have speciated considerably since the Pleistocene, and now number approximately 450 species spread worldwide. The smallest just an ounce in weight, and the largest approximately the weight in stature of the extinct Haast's eagle. Physiologically, they are extremely convergent to true falcons and kill prey, which can range from insects through aardgeese, with their hooked beaks and or their curved talons. A suborder, the ululava, known as bubbirds, hunts by night with oversized eyes and particularly wide, frog-like mouths, often swallowing their prey whole. Close relatives are the shrike finches, Pugnaxornithes, a cosmopolitan lineage of adaptable and predatory or omnivorous generalists similar to crows, rooks, and true shrikes that descends from the shriekers. Not as specialized as the true falconaries at active predation, they more readily pilfer nests, hunt insects, and consume carrion. Tyrant serins, Tyrannoserinae, are descendants of the early predators known as skyks, and before them the primitive axebills of the early Pleistocene, which were very similar to the ancestral aardgoose. Though distantly related as Dromaeoserinae, tyrant serins have gone down a polar opposite evolutionary path and have become the largest terrestrial carnivores of the Tempucenic era, with genera present in both the east and the west. They now reach sizes of up to 900 pounds and 13 feet in height, and kill with their giant, sharply hooked bill, which features a razor-sharp cutting tooth on either side to cut through bones and ligaments. Tyrant serins are social, hunting in pairs or large and coordinated packs to bring down the largest of ground birds, particularly the aardgeese. Their offspring are precocial, well feathered in warm down, and able to run at birth. But they cannot hunt for themselves for several months and rely on their parents' kills for their first year of their life. When 6 months old, they begin to shed their down and take on their adult feathers and join in active hunting and assist their parents. But they will then not develop adult coloration for more than a year or be self-sufficient until that time. Tyrant serins are either lifelong monogams or serial ones, picking new partners each season. In pack hunting species, the pack usually consists of an alpha male and female and their offspring, plus young males brought in from other packs, with only the alpha pair reproducing and the other serins assisting in bringing up the young. Nesting is typical for ground birds, with incubation often done right out in the open in a basic scrape in the earth, for the largest tyrant serins have no predators of their own. Tyrant serins engage in social singing, usually by night, which serves to affirm pack bonds and keep distant pack members in contact, similarly to the howls of wolves. Their songs remain complex and varied motifs. Both sexes engage in it, and no two individuals sing identically. Close relatives of the tyrant serins are the Sesopterinae, the hogbirds. Less predatory than tyrant serins, they are similar to the common ancestor of both clades, the axebills, and comprise a diverse suborder of omnivores with large and sometimes ornamented bills equally suited to crushing seeds, fruit, and nuts as skulls, flesh, and bones. Pelicanaries, Pelicanarinae, are a lineage of seabird descended from the duck-like dugals of the Hypostacenic. They are all almost completely aquatic and flightless, with large paddle-like wings and reduced webbed hind legs situated far back on the body. All species exhibit a pronounced pouch on the underside of the bill, which is used to hold fish. But several especially large species of this lineage have also adopted a very unique trait. They incubate their own eggs within these pouches, with the male and female taking turns sitting at the surface to guard the egg. The pouch is well vascularized with blood vessels, and the relatively large egg, situated in the back near the throat, stays warm, dry, and oxygenated in this makeshift incubator, while allowing the adults to completely avoid coming to shore to breed, where they risk numerous predators and competitors on crowded beaches. Pelicanarian mouth brooding originates from a long process that began with grebe-like ancestors building crude nests in shallow bays out of floating vegetation. This situation provided an environment with fewer competitors and predators than on shore, but the egg was always at risk of falling into the water. Subsequently, it became more buoyant, with a larger air pocket and a waxy eggshell cuticle less easily permeated by seawater. The adult birds simultaneously evolved to quickly grab and retrieve the egg in their throat pouch if it strayed from the nest in a wave. Eventually, this gave rise to dorsal incubation, in which the nest was done away with entirely, and the egg was incubated on the low, flat back of the adult, covered by the neck plumage and warm skin of the bare throat pouch to keep warm, a practice still used by many pelicanarians today. Eventually from there, true mouth brooding was achieved when the parents simply engulfed the egg in the pouch and kept it there at all times, safe from outside threats. As a result of their recently cut ties to land and terrestrial incubation, mouth-brooding pelicanaries are extremely large seabirds that can no longer walk out of water, some weighing upwards of 3,000 pounds and stretching 25 feet long, counting their necks, which can, in some species, be almost half their total length. They are most often deep divers, pursuing open water fish and crustaceans. But shallow water specialists exist, which feed on mollusks and invertebrates living in the shallow sediment of coastal waters. All species of pelicanary are monogamous, for their reproductive methods rely on cooperation, one partner watching the egg while the other feeds. Sunflower trees. By the Tempucene, bamboo and sunflowers together make up the vast majority of tree-like plants, each forming the foundation of major forest communities. Most bamboo generally thrive where conditions are wet, and sunflowers are more tolerant of drier environments, though there is overlap. With a few notable exceptions, most extant bamboo is primitive, forming enormous clumps that reproduce most efficiently via spreading runners. Serina sunflowers by 25 million years post-establishment, however, have changed dramatically and in often remarkable ways. Wherever rainfall is insufficient for the growth of bamboo thickets, but more than is necessary for prairie grasses, a sunflower forest crops up. A far cry from the barren monoculture ecosystems of a very young Serina, the sunflower forest today is a unique, balanced ecosystem comprising many species and organisms, and one that varies considerably across the world. All are defined, however, by the tall, broad-leaved flowering plants that form their canopies. Gigantic, branching sunflowers that live for many years and build up their branching stalks with cellulose, eventually forming a woody trunk and reaching great heights. Sunflower trees are a polyphyletic grouping descended from many distinct ancestors which have converged on a similar appearance in response to the same environmental condition. For example, tropical and temperate species are unrelated, as are most desert and rainforest species. Indeed, at least 4 sunflower lineages independently developed a tree-like growth habit, surviving for a number of years without dying to the ground, and building upon their old growth year after year. But superficially, they are all very similar, with woody trunks that branch growing upwards into many smaller growing shoots. The leaves are broad, flat, and generally nutritious to herbivores, either hairy, as in the ancestral sunflower, or smooth, depending on the species. All sunflower trees have shorter lifespans than most woody earth trees, between 10 and 20 years, but due to a rapid growth rate, this is fully sufficient to reach sizes of 60 feet tall or greater. Sunflower trees reproduce through seeds that follow often very bright and showy blossoms, sometimes still cheery and yellow, and sometimes quite distinct from their ancestors. They are pollinated by beetles and honey ants, or not too infrequently the wind. These trees having significant and colorless blossoms without noticeable petals. Just like the modern sunflower, the seeds of sunflower trees are extremely nutritious and desirable to birds. In temperate climates, the survival of young birds in their first winter can be completely reliant on the success of the seed crop that year. If the trees don't produce large crops in the autumn, the young are unable to fatten up sufficiently to survive migration and starve. Flocks of millions, and not infrequently billions, of seed-eating songbirds gather when crops are heavy, gathering on the bristly branches so thickly that they hang limply under their combined weight. In the tropics, sunflower trees are equivalent to Earth's figs. There is almost always one fruiting somewhere, always providing a reliable food source to jungle animals no matter the time of year. Since sunflower trees grow rapidly, they are among the first plants to colonize cleared ground after a fire. But individual trees are extremely susceptible to flames and burn up rapidly. Their sap highly flammable, and their lightweight, corky wood extremely combustible. A lengthy wildfire can completely destroy vast tracts of sunflower forest, burning hot enough to completely break down the tree's trunks to ash and cinders, and leaving little more than a field of charcoal in their wake, and is often fueled by the dried leaves, fallen flowers, and dead branches that tend to accumulate under the forest in the dry environments in which they thrive. In just a few months, however, a completely charred forest, which seems hopelessly destroyed, will return to a bright green garden as the trees return in the form of sucker shoots sent up by the tree's roots and seeds buried in the soil. Forests tend to burn down completely at least every other decade and regenerate, meaning few ever truly reach their potential natural lifespans or sizes. But incredible growth rates and maturity offset this. A sunflower tree can easily grow 15 feet tall and then flower abundantly in its first year, a benefit of evolving from an annually growing roadside wildflower, meaning that even the shortest season is usually enough to complete a generation. Wherever a sunflower tree does manage to grow to its full 50 or 60 foot height, however, it is truly a sight to behold. A single tree may arch over with 10,000 blossoms, attracting millions of pollinators in the brief 2 to 3 weeks before it loses its petals and becomes an unexceptional green tree once again for the remainder of the year. Aardgeese browse the nutritious green shoots and leaves extensively. The understory of the sunflower forest is usually a patchwork of smaller shrubs, clover, short fern-like grasses that spread along the shady soil, and periodic clearings where wildflowers grow in dense carpets out from the leaf litter. Among the most successful forest shrubs are the long-lived, thorny derivatives of dandelions that grow several meters above the ground on raised woody stems. They thrive in the shade, but their flowers worship the sun. They periodically send up giant, antennae-like flower stalks through the canopy and into the open air as much as 5 meters above. where ants can reach them to pollinate, and where the seeds can then be taken by the wind and dispersed into distant forest clearings. Though they sprout only where the ground is clear and the sun unobstructed, they do not die out when the trees return and close the canopy like many other pioneer species. Instead, they just slow down a bit, growing over many decades in the shade. Seeing many sunflower trees come and go in their time. When the forest goes up in flame, they die to the ground and regrow quickly from their roots, being all but invincible to most natural phenomena the forest can throw at them. Dandelion bushes are also highly successful desert plants, often forming dense stands on the dry borders between savanna and scrub. But it is the sunflowers which are the dominant tree-like plant in Serina's deserts. Here, multiple genera have come to resemble not trees, but cacti, having convergently evolved fleshy, barrel-shaped trunks to store water, reduced or fully absent leaves, and sharp protective thorns and hairs on their soft tissues to protect against evaporation and the hungering of herbivores. Desert sunflower trees are longer lived than forest species, and some may live for half a century or longer, for fire is infrequent in the true desert. There is rarely enough fuel. Like true cacti, these desert sunflowers produce beautiful and extravagant blossoms during the rainy season. Blossoms which produce large quantities of nectar and attract both insects and pollinating birds. However, as the minimal resources of the desert do not allow for a massive overproduction of seeds to counteract the great number eaten by wildlife, these sunflowers have evolved a different strategy to spread their seeds. Instead of producing great quantities of large, bare seeds desirable to animals as a food source, they produce smaller numbers of smaller seeds with extremely hard shells encased in sweet, fleshy berries. Birds consume the fruits whole, rather than concentrating on the seeds, and pass the seeds intact in their droppings, dispersing them and helping the plant to reproduce.